broadcast of It's Time with Reverend Nathaniel W. Martin. Here's Reverend Martin.
Thank you, Dr. Blackwell. Let me say, Hotep, Avaragani, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, but certainly never good night and not ever goodbye. Goodbyes are so traumatizing for me. My name is the Reverend Nathaniel Wayne Martin. I'm the pastor of New Life Institutional Baptist Church here in the city of Los Angeles. And the offering or the presentation which you are viewing is entitled It's Time, and it is always time for environmental justice, even though the Supreme Court has ulterior motives seems to contradict the environmental justice part. And of course, It's Time represents the fact that we must have economic justice. And yes, that economic justice started in slavery, but it was not limited to slavery, because the impact of slavery is still with us to this very hour. And the disparities have become abysmal, and quite a chasm exists between the wealth of our so-called white brothers and the wealth of our so-called black brothers. We blacks have $1 or less for every $100,000 of our nearest middle-class white, so-called white person may be concerned. And so these kind of disparities didn't just happen by circumstance or by chance. No, it was a concerted structural effort. And by structure, we mean that the hierarchy of this nation has favored those who were so-called white as being in the ascendancy, and has always disfavored those that were so-called black or Negro, as you will. And so we tended to be always on the bottom. And when that type of structure is obtained over generations and over the course of the history of this nation, then of course it is no wonder that things are as they are at the present time. I heard a young brother, well, he's younger than I, who says that we have achieved the American dream. And American dream was always every person with their own house, 2 cars in the garage, and the chicken in every pot. And believe me, that has not been attained. If I was coming out here now, I couldn't afford the house that I live in, because things have just gone up and up astronomically. You have to have 3 jobs in order to even get a down payment together on a house. So the American dream has become what it always has been, the American nightmare. And we need to face that reality and move on that reality boldly and with maturity, recognizing that there are forces in play that want to oppose us at every turn, and their resistance is not going away. The January 6th committee should be a standard or an example or an exemplar to demonstrate to the entire nation, and especially to us black people, just how badly this structure is opposing our advancement. Anytime that you want to oppose democracy itself, not the Democratic Party, but actual democracy. Remember, we live in a democratic republic. But anytime that you have people, and they are in the Congress, and until recently they were President of the United States, who want to overthrow that democracy simply for the fact of them maintaining themselves in power, contradictory to the oath of office which they swore to uphold the Constitution of these United States. But yet their egos and their narcissistic sociopathology is such that they would want to undermine democracy itself in order that they may stay in power. And remember that the one of the witnesses at the January 6th committee hearing has said, if you don't stop them, they will do this again, and they probably will be more successful, because if you just hadn't had a principal Mike Pence, who at least would not do that, throw that election back to the states in contradistinction to the orders or to the Constitution itself, then we would really be in a pickle. And we have a lot of people in Congress who are not that principled, who lack those type of ethics and that type of integrity. I was looking at Mr. Lewandowski, and God help us if he gets in charge. And he is a consummate politician, and he goes whichever way the wind is blowing. And he owed his allegiance to Donald Trump, and he was willing to do whatever Donald Trump asked him to do. So we cannot rest on our laurels. We cannot go to sleep and at this dangerous hour. We must man the walls, man the barricades to the positions, and get to your positions armed with your faith, and armed with your prayers, and armed with the Word of God. And because we are wrestling not against flesh and blood, as the scripture tells us in the Ephesians chapter 6, verses 11 and 12. We're wrestling against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. And that is not to diminish the possibility that we shall overcome, but it is to acknowledge that this battle must be fought, and that there can be, Dr. King said that we have no room for any conscientious objectors. Everybody must play their part. All right, now I forgot to mention that this is a social justice moment, and by social justice we've already defined it, environmental and economic justice, but of course it is not limited to those two. Those two are the salience, because your environment is what you have to live in, and if your environment is sick or polluted or corrupted, then your health is going to be impacted, and so your pursuit of happiness is going to be severely impacted, if not limited, because if your environment is an unhealthy environment and you are breathing that environment or living in that environment and bringing forth your children in that environment, then you're going to have to improve or change that environment. That means not only the atmosphere, but it means the society itself. So we were dealt a bad hand beginning our sojourn here, because after slavery, then of course they began to put the legal frameworks of Jim Crow in place, and segregation, and separate but equal, and all of that type of thing. And the they gave themselves the suburbs. By they, I meaning the white, so-called white ruling party, under a theory of white supremacy. And what was left was us in the projects or in the slums or in the ghettos of our nation, which is why our conditions are as they are on this date, wherever you look across this country. I had to chuckle. Some white people walking through my neighborhood. Yes, they're coming back to Inglewood now, and they were walking, and naturally they only want to find the bad things about, so they saw the tree roots coming up out of the ground, and they were shaking their heads and clucking their tongues. So I said, yes, because I was watering the grass. I said, yes, but the sidewalk that you're walking on is flat, because the city makes sure that the sidewalk is not all this eruptions from the roots. So you have a flat sidewalk to walk on here in the city of Inglewood. I thought I'd throw that in for free because gentrification has started, and they always want to minimize where we live so that they can buy our houses on the cheap or on the down low, which has been which is a manifestation or another example of the structure of racism, in that you don't have the ability to set the price on your property. No, it's somebody way away somewhere on some bank board or banking industry or real estate board. They set what the houses are worth in your vicinity. And your vicinity is always lowball. Whereas over there where the white folks live, it's always sky's the limit. It's highball. And so we suffer from this structural racism. And that's why we continue to say that we wrestle not against flesh and blood. In other words, the real estate agent may come to the door, or ring the doorbell, or call you on the phone and say, we have an offer. We like to offer you something for your house if you entertain it, but they are looking after their own selfish interests. And you must look after your own selfish interests, because once you sell your house, you ain't got that house no more. You can't stay there that night. You're going to have to go somewhere else, and wherever else you go, it's going to be what you sold your house for and more. So you better be sure you know what you're doing before you let these people con you out of your house. God has blessed you with somewhere to stay. You probably better stay there. And until they make you an offer that is so ridiculously high and will put you so over the threshold of what you are going to have to deal with in moving, that you can safely accept the offer. Notice I said so overwhelmingly lucrative, because once you're out in those streets, you're going to spend a lot of money. And if you're up in age, like I'm 75 now, you need to be where you're going to be. And unless things really, really open up advantageously for you economically, you must be like that old nursery rhyme that says, stay, chicken, stay. All right, so briefly, we have the problem with the U.S. Supreme Court. And thank God Miss Ketanji Brown Jackson is now the first black woman on the U.S. Supreme Court. But she is going to be in the minority. She's only going to be writing dissents with Miss Kagan and Miss Sotomayor and herself. Because the court is now 6-3 with the conservatives in the ascendancy. And so John Roberts can play on either side of the issue, because make no mistake about it, he is the arch conservative on there, going all the way back. But I want to zoom in on the principle, the precedent of stare decisis, which Senator Susan Collins said that those people who came before her for their confirmation, they all claim to uphold stare decisis. Stare decisis is that basically what it says, it's what we stand by the decision that's already been made. And that's what is so dangerous about the settler colonialism that is practiced in this country. Alexander Stephens said that he was perfect. He could not fault. Let me read what he said. He said, the Constitution, it is true, secured every essential guarantee to the institution of slavery while it should last, and hence no argument can be justly used against the constitutional guarantees that's thus secured because of the common sentiment of the day. Remember, the Constitution was a compromise with tyranny. It was a compromise with evil. It was a compromise with injustice and unrighteousness, because it tried to say that you could have freedom on the one hand and slavery at the same time, and that the two are compatible, but they were never compatible. But Alexander Stephens gives us to understand that Constitution served the slavocracy of his day. Remember that there are originalists on the Supreme Court who still go back to that original Constitution, and because that original Constitution codified slavery in all of its horrors and all of its forms, and that is what we have been trying to correct, and that is why I don't believe that we can get too mad at the fact that the justices have not lived up to stare decisis, because under the originalist stare decisis, I would still be in slavery, and if you were black, you would still be in slavery, because that's what, if they said that we would stand by the previous decision, and the previous decision says, well, if you are a slave and you were born, your mama was a slave, well, you're going to be a slave, and you're going to be a slave all your life. Well, see, that's what stare decisis would subject the poor to, and the rich as well, sometimes advantageously, true, but then sometimes non-advantageously. Isn't that right? And so I always like to keep Alexander Stephens' speech that he made nearby, because he makes a better argument for why we need to change this Constitution, and why we had to go put all those amendments to the Constitution, because the Constitution as it was written, as Thurgood Marshall said, we the people, and the first three words, we the people. Who were the people? Why, there was the landed white gentry, not the women, definitely not the Negro, and definitely not the American Indians, or the Columbus Indians, as I call them. Alexander Stephens did confess that the Constitution originally rested upon the assumption of the equality of the races. And according to Alexander Stephens, remember, he was the vice president of the Confederacy, this was an error. He said it was a sandy foundation, and the idea of a government built upon it. When the storm came and the wind blew, it fell. Now, get back to stare decisis, standing by what has been decided, and why we can't place our everything and our utmost on that type of reasoning, because originalists, as Thurgood Marshall said, blacks were not included in that Constitution other than as 3/5 of a human being for the purposes of representation. And that type of reasoning is what influences the John Roberts Court. That's what influenced the Chief Justice Taney Court. And for most of the century, it has been the precedent or the ruling sentiment of all of those who cater to the industrial class at the expense of the laboring poor, of which I am one. And this is a condition, circumstance, is a conundrum, really, and it's a dilemma, and it's a contradiction in term, but of course the Constitution itself was a contradiction. It made a contradiction when it accepted the 3/5 clause, and it made a contradiction when it accepted that persons held to slavery or involuntary servitude or labor, they didn't use the word slavery in the Constitution, when the framers of the Constitution accepted those two contradictions, they guaranteed the Civil War would obtain, because you can't be half slave and half free, as Abraham Lincoln so nobly affirmed. And so, my friends, hats off to Miss Ketanji Brown Jackson. I listened to that oath of office which she took. The first oath said was the here it is. Let me see, where is it? Her oath, after she had recited the original constitutional oath for the Supreme Court, says, I, Ketanji J. Brown Jackson, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will administer justice without respect to persons, and do equal right to the poor and to the rich. Now, where in the world has the Supreme Court ever done equal right to the poor and to the rich? And that I will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all the duties incumbent upon me as a justice of the Supreme Court, under the Constitution and the laws of the United States. So help me God. And I can tell you that we live in a nation that has not lived up, where the Supreme Court has not lived up to those values, and where the people taken the oath to uphold the Constitution, support and defend the Constitution of the United States. Did you see those people up on the wall on January 6th? And did you hear the 139 congressmen, Ted Cruz among them, Matt Gaetz and Mr. Gomer, and all of those that were trying to overthrow the election? They were not upholding this Constitution. They were not upholding this oath that they swore. They were not prepared to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, while they were the enemies. And they are still the enemies of justice. As the lady told us this week on the January 6th committee, Ms. Hutchinson, she said that Donald Trump knew that those people had weapons, that the Secret Service had pointed out a man up in a tree with an AR-15. And you're not supposed to have no AR-15 private citizen that close to the President of the United States. If it's not illegal for you to own it, but you got it out there in where you can shoot the President. And in this instance, the President of the United States says to the Secret Service, put down those magnometers that will detect metal detectors. Because, okay, 5 minutes. I want my people, they're not here to hurt me. They're not here to shoot me. They're going to the Capitol. Oh, Lord. Folks, you can't make this stuff up. And so, anyway, Trump incited the mob. And Trump was okay with them lynching Mike Pence, his vice president. And all of those are violations of law, my brothers and my sisters. And but he's probably not going to be held accountable because he's a white man. He has what you call white privilege. As he said in an off-cuff remark, that he used to go grab the women by their intimate parts, and they won't say nothing about it. Well, he's grabbed the whole United States by his intimate parts, and most of our people don't want to say nothing about it. Our democracy is being challenged, and nobody wants to say this is wrong, or this is treason, or this is sedition. And you must arrest Donald Trump if you're going to make a clean breast of this whole thing. And that's why I know this January 6th committee is just fluff. All right, as I close out, I return again to the speech of Alexander Stephens. Remember, he was the vice president of the Confederacy. He says, our new government is founded upon exactly the opposite ideas. Remember, according to him, even though the Constitution had accepted slavery, it also said that assumption of the equality of races. And according to Alexander Stephens, he said, our Constitution is founded upon the opposite ideas. Its foundations are laid, and its cornerstone rests upon the great truth. It's Alexander Stephens, that the Negro is not equal to the white man, and that slavery, subordination to the superior race, is his natural and moral condition. Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, KKK, those are where those people get their marching orders from. They are still guided by these principles. And you need to be on your guard. You can't afford to be caught unawares, because you get caught on the dirt road there somewhere, you might get yourself killed. As I say to my church members, those that say we all serve the same God, listen, if you ever coming up out of Georgia, going up to South Carolina, coming out of Willacoochee, headed up north, and you see a fiery burning cross on the hill, don't go up there. All right, I'm going to stop right there. But the Republicans have played the long game, and they have won. So they have 6 Republicans on the Supreme Court, and you only have 3 Democrats. And they can do just about what they will. And Clarence Thomas is going to go down in history as another Roger Taney. You will mark my words. All right, and to our brothers and sisters that are working, we thank God for you. And remember, if you get all the money you can get for your labor, because once you put your labor out there, you cannot get it back. And if working hard was all it took to get money, every slave coming out of slavery would have been a millionaire. So what I'm saying, if you're working on a job and they don't want to pay you, take my advice, don't work for them. Thank you, Doc. We're out of here.